New jail footage just shook the internet. Queso, once feared in Jacksonville's rap scene, now looks broken, betrayed, and body slammed behind bars. But the real shock? His own father took the stand and pointed the finger. This isn't just another rapper falling off. It's a brutal story of gang wars, betrayal, and a family ripped apart from the inside. Let's break down how Queso's empire crumbled from the streets to the courtroom.
Leaked jail footage. Queso slammed to the ground. The moment everything broke. The internet exploded when new footage of Queso surfaced, showing the once rising rapper being violently body slammed in jail by a corrections officer. The video spread fast, not because Queso was a celebrity, but because of how far he had fallen. Shackled, motionless, and visibly in pain, the man in the footage didn't look like the same Queso who once taunted rivals in music videos with gold chains and assault rifles. He looked defeated, broken. But this video was just the final image in a story that had been unraveling for years. Behind that one moment of violence was a long, brutal road of betrayal, murder, and a gang war that turned Jacksonville's streets into war zones. And at the center of it all was Queso, a name both feared and now pitied. People who hadn't followed the case were stunned by the clip. What could lead a man from rap stardom to being thrown like a rag doll in a jail cell? For those who had followed the trial, the footage hit even harder. It came on the heels of a courtroom moment that silenced the entire city. Queso's own father took the stand and identified him as a murderer. A single sentence, "That's my son," was all it took to devastate whatever loyalty remained. And while Queso sat in jail, fighting for his life in court, the jail itself became a second battlefield. Reports of abuse, mental breakdowns, and alleged setups inside the facilities started surfacing. People began asking, was this justice or a slow execution? That's why this viral footage matters so much. It isn't just about a body slam, it's about the physical symbol of a man who lost everything: his crew, his freedom, and his father's loyalty. It's the breaking point in a story that's part true crime, part family tragedy, and all heartbreak. But to understand how we got here, we need to rewind the clock to the moment the streets first bled.
Bloodshed begins. ATK versus KTA, when rap becomes a death match. To understand how Queso ended up body slammed in a jail cell and betrayed by his own blood, you have to go back to 2017 when Jacksonville's streets turned into a battleground. This wasn't just rap beef, this was real bloodshed between two deadly forces, ATK and KTA. It all started when Zion Malik Brown, an 18-year-old associated with KTA, was murdered. That killing ignited one of the deadliest gang wars in Florida's recent history, a feud that would leave over a dozen people dead, including innocent kids caught in the crossfire. ATK, Ace's top killers, was headed by rising rapper Youngeen Ace, and Queso quickly became one of his most feared soldiers. On the other side, KTA, short for Kill Them All, was fronted by another local rapper, Julio Fulio, who had his own loyal following. These weren't just rap crews trading diss tracks. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office classified both groups as organized violent gangs. The rivalry escalated fast. Diss songs turned into real funerals. Instagram taunts became shootouts, and instead of de-escalating, each death only fueled the fire. In this war, every track had a body count, and every lyric was a potential hit list. Queso, known off the mic as Hakeem Robinson, wasn't just part of the war. He became one of its key players. Young, ruthless, and eager to prove himself, he turned tragedy into motive. And when his stepbrother, Willie Addison, aka Boss Goon, was murdered in 2019, Queso snapped. This wasn't just a crew war anymore. For Queso, it became personal. From that moment on, retaliation was no longer a gang strategy. It was a family mission. And that mindset would eventually push Queso down a road that would destroy everything and everyone around him. But before that unraveling happened, the pain had to get closer. The loss had to hit home, and when it did, it changed Queso forever.
Family destroyed. His brother's murder lit the fire for revenge. For Queso, the gang war wasn't just about street politics or rap dominance anymore. It got personal on January 15, 2019, when his stepbrother Willie Addison, also known as Boss Goon, was gunned down in a brutal ambush outside Paradise Gentlemen's Club. But Willie wasn't the only one hit. Queso's own father, Abdul Robinson Sr., and his brother Abdul Jr. were also shot that night. His brother took a bullet to the head, nearly died, and spent months relearning how to walk and talk. That kind of trauma doesn't just hurt, it warps your entire worldview. Queso wasn't just mourning, he was boiling with rage. The cycle of revenge had swallowed his family, and now it was his turn to strike back. Exactly 1 year later, on January 15, 2020, that retaliation came. Charles Lowbuck McCormick Jr., a 23-year-old rapper affiliated with KTA, was shot and killed outside a shopping plaza in Jacksonville. The streets immediately tied it to Queso. Why? Because McCormick had dropped a diss track mocking Willie's death, claiming he was smoking on Willie. That's the kind of disrespect that demands retaliation in street culture. And Queso responded the only way he knew. But here's where he made the fatal mistake. Instead of staying silent, Queso bragged. He flaunted photos of McCormick online, posted taunting captions, and even appeared in music videos flashing weapons allegedly used in the murder. One Instagram post featured McCormick's face with the word B, a slang farewell that prosecutors later weaponized in court. He was leaving a digital trail, building a case against himself, one post at a time. What should have been a silent act of revenge turned into a public confession. And just like that, the trap was set. The walls were closing in, not just because of what Queso did, but because he wouldn't stop talking about it. And once the police had enough to move in, they weren't coming alone. They brought his friends, his crew, and eventually, his father. Queso posted his own confession when clout became a death sentence. Queso didn't just pull the trigger, he pulled the spotlight onto himself. And that spotlight became a weapon. After Charles McCormick was killed, Queso couldn't stay quiet. Instead of laying low like someone who just committed a serious crime, he ran to Instagram, dropping cryptic captions over McCormick's photo, including the slang term bae, a mocking farewell. It wasn't just taunting, it was confession through clout. Then came the music videos. Queso appeared on camera flashing rifles and handguns, the same type of weapons later linked to the murder. In one clip, he wore clothes that witnesses said matched those worn by the shooter. Every post, every video was another nail in the coffin. Even his close friend and ATK frontman Youngeen Ace unknowingly added fuel to the fire. In the song Queso Homicide, Ace rapped the now infamous line, "Queso, go kill him." Prosecutors seized on that lyric, claiming it wasn't just music, it was a documented threat, a reflection of intent and group identity. In court, the evidence stacked fast. Surveillance footage placed Queso at the scene. Cell phone data pinged in the same area at the same time. His fingerprints were found on the getaway car's weapon. And most damaging of all, his own posts, preserved in digital amber, gave prosecutors exactly what they needed. Even rival rapper Julio Fulio, before he was killed in 2024, commented publicly on how reckless Queso had become. In an interview, Fulio said, "I don't know why you'd brag about a body online. It makes no sense." And he was right. In a world where murder has no statute of limitations and prosecutors are watching every word you post, Queso was making their job easy. What could have been a hard-to-prove gang case became a slam dunk, not because of snitches, not because of wiretaps, but because Queso snitched on himself, online. And that was just the beginning. The real betrayals were still to come, Because when the trial began, it wasn't just the internet turning on him, it was his own inner circle. The ultimate betrayal. His crew flipped, then his own father took the stand. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse for Queso, the people closest to him flipped, and it started with a man who was supposed to be just the getaway driver. Dominique "Butter" Barner took the stand first. He had already cut a plea deal in exchange for a lighter sentence, but what he delivered in court wasn't just testimony, it was a complete play-by-play of the murder. Barner admitted he drove the stolen Nissan Altima while Queso and Leroy Scotty Whitaker, Queso's cousin, stalked Charles McCormack. He explained how they waited for hours outside McCormack's apartment, then followed him to the shopping plaza. When McCormack got out of his car, Queso jumped out with a rifle and ran him down. In Barner's words, run down means ambush, chase him, kill him. And when the prosecutor asked what did Hakeem Robinson do, Barner didn't flinch, chased him, killed him. But as shocking as that was, the courtroom wasn't prepared for what came next. Queso's own father, Abdul Robinson Sr., took the stand. A 54-year-old man facing 60 years in prison for helping his sons cover up the murder, Abdul Sr. made a choice that rocked the streets. He took a plea deal, reduced his sentence to 20 years, and agreed to cooperate. When the prosecutor asked him to identify the shooter in the dashcam footage of McCormack's murder, Abdul hesitated, got emotional, then said it. "That's my son." Dead silence. He didn't just help convict Queso, he destroyed him. Abdul also testified against his other son, Abdul Jr., and admitted to burning the shooter's clothes behind a Burger King. His reason? Failing health, kidney failure, congestive heart failure, an 8-year-old daughter asking about daddy-daughter dances, 2 young sons begging to see their dad again. In that moment, he wasn't a gang affiliate. He was a father torn between loyalty and survival. And that choice would ripple across the entire city, because in the streets, this was worse than death.
Beaten, isolated, broken, inside the jail cell that crushed Queso. While Queso was getting buried by the court system, he was also getting broken inside jail, both physically and mentally. This wasn't just about awaiting trial, it was a slow destruction from the inside out. And the surveillance footage that went viral was only the beginning. Queso had been locked up since September 2020, and right from the start, things went south. On October 5, 2021, surveillance from inside Duval County Jail showed a corrections officer entering Queso's cell, handcuffing him, and then suddenly slamming him face first into the concrete. It looked like something out of a wrestling match, except Queso wasn't fighting back. He was restrained. The officers claimed he had threatened to spit and said he was making death threats, but Queso's family tells a darker story. According to them, the guard taunted him about his deceased sister, saying things like, "Your sister's dead," and threatening to rearrange his face. Later that same day, just hours after the beating, Queso's sister, Carriana Robinson, was shot in the face by a bail bondsman at a Jacksonville mall. She was reportedly skipping bond, but the timing was too perfect, too disturbing. She survived, but her jaw was blown off, requiring a tracheostomy. The family believed it wasn't a coincidence. They suspected a targeted message. The beatings weren't isolated. In December 2024, Queso posted through intermediaries that the police done beat me again. No footage ever surfaced, but his attorney reported signs of physical and mental abuse, including extended isolation on the jail's psych floor. Queso allegedly stopped eating, stopped sleeping, and couldn't even speak clearly to his legal team. It was as if the system wasn't just trying to convict him, it was trying to erase him before the trial even began. Eventually, in early 2025, he was moved back to general population after legal complaints, but the damage was done. The man who once flashed rifles in music videos was now broken, battered, and barely able to defend himself. And while all this was happening, the people he once trusted were lining up to testify against him. Guilty for life when the system, the streets, and his father all turned. By the time Queso entered the courtroom in mid-2025, he wasn't the same man who once stood tall in music videos and diss tracks. He looked drained, thinner, emotionless. And as the trial unfolded, it became clear this wasn't a fair fight anymore. The system, his crew, even his own father had already taken their shots. Now, it was time for the verdict. The prosecution didn't rely on one smoking gun. They didn't need to. They had everything. Surveillance footage capturing the ambush, cell phone records placing Queso at the scene, fingerprints found on weapons, rap lyrics and Instagram posts as digital confessions, and perhaps the most devastating, testimony from his own family. His cousin, Leroy Scotty Whitaker, was also on trial, and he was looking for a way out. Everyone around Queso was jumping ship. Everyone was talking. And the one man who should have stood by him, his father, lit the match that burned everything down. In closing arguments, prosecutors said they didn't even need Abdul Sr.'s testimony to win. But having it, that was like throwing gasoline on a fire. The jury barely needed 3 hours. On July 31, 2025, Queso was found guilty of first-degree murder. So was his cousin. Both now face life sentences without parole. The courtroom was silent, not even a sigh from Queso, just blank stares, as if he'd already been convicted months ago, in the streets, in the media, in his own mind. But the story didn't end there, because soon after that verdict, new footage leaked. The same video that would go viral, showing a man shattered by the system. And while most headlines focused on the body slam, they missed the real story. A young man destroyed from the inside out, betrayed by everyone he trusted, and crushed by a cycle of violence that chewed up his entire family. Now, Queso had nothing left but time.
Not just Queso, Jacksonville is dying in a cycle of violence. Queso's downfall isn't just one man's tragedy, it's a symptom of something much bigger. His story echoes through every corner of Jacksonville, a city trapped in an ongoing violence that has claimed lives, broken families, and turned music into war cries. The ATK versus KTA feud didn't end with Queso's conviction or Fulio's death. If anything, it got worse. In January 2025, just months before Queso's verdict, a 7-year-old girl named Brianne Allen was killed in a crossfire linked to the ongoing beef. A child, caught in a war she had nothing to do with, and yet she became another victim in a long list of names that keep getting longer. This isn't just about rap. It's about how social media, music, and street politics collide to fuel an endless fire. Diss tracks become taggets, lyrics become evidence, death becomes content. Platforms like YouTube and Instagram reward the violence with views and engagement, turning real-life murders into viral moments. And the artists caught in it? Many of them are young, traumatized, and trapped. Even Sheriff Mike Williams compared it to the new gang graffiti, where a single Instagram post can spark retaliation. Songs like Who I Smoke and When I See You weren't just music, they were taunts that led to funerals. In that environment, loyalty becomes a liability. Queso had a crew, a platform, and a father. He lost all three. And while many condemned Abdul Robinson Sr. for testifying, few acknowledged the impossible choice he faced: protect a son already swallowed by the streets, or save the children who still had a future. Jacksonville isn't just facing a gang problem, it's facing a generational crisis, where trauma goes untreated, poverty goes unchecked, and violence gets repackaged as entertainment. Queso's story is tragic, yes, but it's also a warning, because as long as the streets keep bleeding and the culture keeps profiting, there will be another Queso, another Fulio, another Brianne Allen. And next time, the cameras might catch it all again, just in time to go viral.
A legacy of blood and silence.
Queso's fall is a warning to us all. Queso's fall wasn't just the story of a rapper who lost his way. It was the story of a system that failed at every level. From the streets that raised him, to the music that glorified violence, to the jail cell that broke him, every step brought him closer to the edge. His own father's testimony became the final blow, not just legally, but emotionally, symbolizing a complete breakdown of trust, loyalty, and family. But beyond the headlines and viral clips lies something darker, a warning. Because Queso isn't alone. He's one of many, young, angry, ignored, and drawn into a culture where pain becomes power and violence earns validation. Until we change what we reward, until we stop turning real death into online spectacle, this cycle will continue. And the next time a young man like Queso gets slammed to the ground, it won't be the start of the story. It'll be the end.